Was I wrong for what I did? Honestly, I've replayed that night 1,000 times in my head, questioning every single decision, every single word. But when you're pushed to the absolute breaking point, when you realize your own family, the people who are supposed to love and protect you, are actively plotting your public humiliation, what else are you supposed to do? I'm going to tell you exactly what happened, and I want you, every single one of you watching, to tell me if you would have done the same thing. Because what they planned for me, what they intended to do, was so cruel, so calculated, it still makes my stomach churn just thinking about it. It all started, as these things often do, with a seemingly innocuous family dinner. It was a week before New Year's Eve, and my parents had invited my older sister, Clara, her husband, Mark, and me over for what my mom called a festive catch-up. Clara and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's 3 years older, always the golden child, the academic superstar, the one who married well and had 5 perfect children, even though technically she only has 2. I, on the other hand, was always the black sheep, the creative one, the free spirit, the one who chose art school over a corporate ladder, much to my parents' endless disappointment. This dynamic had only worsened over the years, morphing from sibling rivalry into something far more insidious, largely fueled by Clara's thinly veiled contempt and my parents' quiet complicity. My latest sin, in their eyes, was my recent breakup with David, a perfectly nice, if somewhat boring, accountant. The family had adored David, not because he was a good person, but because he fit their mold. He had a stable job, dressed impeccably, and always knew the right thing to say at family gatherings. My decision to end things, after 3 years of trying to force myself into a life that felt like a beautifully decorated cage, was met with a chorus of "What were you thinking? And you'll never find anyone better." Clara, of course, was the loudest voice in that chorus. She saw my singleness, my independent career path, and my general unwillingness to conform as a personal affront to the family's carefully curated image. She thrives on being the matriarch in waiting, the one who hosts all the important family functions, the one whose life is a perfectly Instagrammable tableau. My messy, vibrant, often unpredictable life was, I suppose, an inconvenient smudge on her pristine canvas. So there I was, sitting at their perfectly set dining table. My mom had cooked her famous roast, and my dad was holding forth on some recent political event, oblivious, as always, to the simmering tensions beneath the surface. Clara, ever the picture of domestic bliss, was regaling everyone with stories of her children's accomplishments, subtly weaving in comments about how lonely it must be for me now that David was out of the picture. I just smiled, nodded, and pushed food around my plate, trying to make myself as small and invisible as possible. I was tired, truly exhausted, from constantly defending my choices, from always feeling like I had to justify my existence to them. After dinner, my dad and Mark retreated to the living room to watch sports, and my mom went to the kitchen to start cleaning up. Clara, however, lingered at the table, picking at a piece of cake. I figured she was about to launch into another lecture about my life choices, so I decided to make my escape to the bathroom. As I walked past the kitchen doorway, I heard my mom's voice, hushed but urgent. "Clara, are you sure about this? It seems a bit much." My heart immediately started to pound. What could possibly be too much for Clara? Curiosity, or perhaps a premonition of dread, compelled me to stop. I pretended to be adjusting my shoe, straining my ears. Clara's voice was a low, venomous hiss. "Mom, she needs to learn her lesson. This New Year's, everyone will be there. All our friends, the Petersons, the Millers, even Aunt Carol and Uncle Bob are flying in. It's the perfect opportunity to finally knock some sense into her." My blood ran cold. Knock some sense into her. What in God's name were they talking about? I pressed myself against the wall, trying to disappear, my breath held captive in my chest. "We've been talking about it." Clara continued, her voice gaining confidence. Mark and I, and even Dad agrees it's for her own good. She's spiraling, Mom. Look at her, she's single, she's almost 30, living in that tiny apartment, pursuing some pipe dream art career. It's embarrassing for all of us. The words hit me like physical blows. Embarrassing, my life, my choices, my very existence, was an embarrassment to them. My mother, instead of defending me, just sighed. I just worry she'll be upset. Upset, Clara scoffed. She should be upset. She needs a wake-up call. We're going to do a little intervention, a sort of new year, new me theme, but with a twist. This is where my world truly tilted on its axis. Clara began to detail their plan, and with every word, I felt a fresh wave of nausea and fury wash over me. Their idea was to present me with a gift at the New Year's party, in front of all their friends and extended family. It wouldn't be just one gift, but a series of carefully chosen, humiliating items. First, a self-help book on finding your inner accountant, a not-so-subtle dig at my failed relationship with David and my artistic career. Then, a framed picture of Clara and David from my parents' last anniversary dinner, meant to remind me of what I'd lost. But the piece de resistance, the cruelest twist of the knife, was a printout of various dating profiles from a dating app, complete with highlighted red flags and sarcastic comments Clara had supposedly added, all meant to highlight my perceived flaws and undateability. The grand finale was a mock budget planner for a single person, filled with condescending tips on how to manage my modest artist's income, all designed to make me feel small, pathetic, and utterly alone. And, Clara whispered, a cruel smile evident in her voice, I even found an old photo of her from high school, you know, that awkward phase, to project onto the big screen while we're giving her the gifts. It'll be hilarious. My mom actually giggled. The woman who tucked me in at night, who taught me how to paint, who always told me she loved me no matter what, was now giggling at the prospect of my public humiliation. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my chest. Betrayal. It was a cold, bitter taste. My own family was actively conspiring to tear me down, to shame me, to strip away any semblance of dignity I had left, all under the guise of helping me. I heard Clara mention my dad's name again, confirming his involvement. Dad even suggested the budget planner, she said proudly. The anger inside me started to burn, a hot, unforgiving flame. This wasn't about tough love. This was about control, about punishing me for not fitting into their narrow, conventional world. This was about Clara proving her superiority, and my parents enabling her toxic agenda. I stood there, frozen, listening to them finalize the details, the specific timing, the dramatic reveal, the supposed spontaneous laughter they expected from the crowd. They were planning a public execution of my self-esteem. I quietly made my way to the bathroom, my mind a whirlwind of disbelief and rage. How could they be so utterly devoid of empathy, so cruel? My hands shook as I splashed water on my face. When I emerged, I pasted on a smile, said my goodbyes as casually as I could, and drove away, the car feeling like a pressure cooker. The entire drive home, the plan for my humiliation replayed in my head. The dating profiles, the high school photo, the sarcastic comments. It was pure malice, and that's when the idea, a tiny, insidious seed, began to sprout in my mind. If they wanted to play games, if they wanted to humiliate, then two could play that game. But I would play it better. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I could have confronted them, made a scene, tried to explain how deeply hurt I was. I could have just not shown up to the party. But after everything I overheard, after realizing the depth of their betrayal, I knew a simple confrontation wouldn't cut it. It would just be me once again as the overly sensitive black sheep, ruining their perfect family image. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let it go? Would you have confronted them? Or would you have plotted your own kind of revenge? Seriously, I need to know if I was justified. The next week was a blur of frantic planning on my part. I pretended nothing was amiss, calling my mom, even Clara, to confirm I'd be at the New Year's party. All the while, my mind was racing, meticulously crafting my own gift for them. My revenge needed to be precise, unexpected, and hit them where it hurt the most, their carefully constructed image. I knew Clara prided herself on being sophisticated, cultured, and having an impeccably refined palate. Her New Year's Eve parties were legendary for their gourmet food and expensive champagne. And my parents, well, they loved their reputation, their pristine social standing, and the illusion of a perfect, harmonious family. I spent hours researching, making phone calls, and pulling strings. I even called in a favor from an old art school friend who now specialized in custom, rather unique art installations. New Year's Eve arrived, and I felt an unnerving calm. I dressed meticulously, chose an outfit that made me feel confident and unbothered, and drove to my parents' house, a large, unassuming box carefully placed in my trunk. When I arrived, the house was already buzzing with guests. The smell of expensive appetizers and champagne filled the air. Clara, resplendent in a designer dress, greeted me with a saccharine smile. "So glad you could make it, dear," she cooed, her eyes scanning me for any sign of weakness or distress. I just smiled back, a genuine, if slightly sinister, smile. Wouldn't miss it for the world. I replied, my voice steady. The evening progressed. I mingled, made polite conversation, and watched them, observed their interactions, the way they played their roles. My dad was jovial, my mom was the perfect hostess, and Clara was the queen bee, radiating an aura of effortless perfection. I could almost feel their anticipation building, their excitement for their intervention, growing with every passing hour. They probably thought I was oblivious, just a sheep waiting to be shorn. Around 11 p.m., with only an hour left until midnight, the moment arrived. My dad clinked a spoon against a champagne flute, calling for everyone's attention. "All right, everyone, before we toast to the new year, we have a little family tradition. We like to exchange a special New Year, New Me gift, something to inspire us for the year ahead." He beamed, his eyes glinting with barely suppressed amusement as they flickered towards me. Clara stepped forward, holding a beautifully wrapped package, her smile stretching wider. "And this year," she announced, her voice dripping with mock sweetness, "we have a very special gift for our dear sister." My parents and Mark stood beside her, forming a united front, their faces alight with smug expectation. The guests, sensing a bit of drama, quieted down, turning their attention towards me. This was it, the moment they had been planning, the moment of my public shame. But they had no idea what was coming. "Actually," I interrupted, stepping forward before Clara could hand me her trap, "I have a gift too. A very special New Year's gift, something truly unique, that I thought would be perfect for our family this year." I walked purposefully to the door, opened it, and retrieved the large, unmarked box from my car. It was heavy, and I carried it back into the living room, placing it gently on the coffee table in front of everyone. Clara's smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion. My parents exchanged nervous glances. "What is this?" my mom whispered. "It's a surprise," I said, my voice calm, almost serene. "A gift that truly represents a new year, new me for our family." I looked directly at Clara, a silent challenge in my eyes. "Go ahead, Clara. Open it." She hesitated, clearly thrown off balance. This wasn't in their script. But her competitive nature wouldn't allow her to back down. With a theatrical flourish, she began to tear at the wrapping paper. Inside the box, nestled amongst packing peanuts, was another, smaller, exquisitely wrapped box. And inside that asterisk was yet another, and another, like Russian nesting dolls, each layer designed to build suspense. The crowd was silent now, intrigued. Finally, Clara reached the innermost box, a sleek, black, velvet-covered cube. She lifted the lid and let out an ear splitting scream. It wasn't a scream of surprise, but of pure, unadulterated horror. Inside the velvet box, on a bed of silk, was a meticulously crafted, perfectly sculpted, life-size replica of a human turd. It was astonishingly realistic, complete with artificial flies buzzing around it, and a truly nauseating, yet strangely artificial, odor that permeated the air. My artist friend had outdone himself, but it wasn't just any asterisk turd. My friend, through some ingenious and frankly, slightly terrifying artistic process, had managed to embed a tiny, almost microscopic, image within the feces. An image that, when viewed through a special magnifying glass I had provided with the gift, clearly showed a photograph of Clara's husband, Mark, holding hands with my parents' next door neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, a woman at least 20 years his senior, outside a discreet motel on the other side of town. A motel I had specifically scouted for its anonymity. The image was undeniable. It was the result of a week of intense, covert detective work, fueled by my rage as I dug into every corner of their perfect lives. Turns out, Mark wasn't so perfect after all. Neither was the marriage. The moment Clara screamed, the entire room erupted, not with laughter as they had planned for me, but with gasps, whispers, and utter chaos. My parents stared, their faces draining of all color. Mark, who had been standing proudly next to Clara, turned a ghastly shade of green, his jaw slack. The elegant New Year's Eve party had officially devolved into a scene of utter pandemonium. Clara, still screaming, dropped the velvet box, and the realistic feckle sculpture rolled onto the pristine white rug. The artificial flies, programmed to buzz louder when disturbed, created a truly disgusting sound effect. The smell, initially subtle, now seemed to intensify, filling the room with an odor that was both fake and deeply unsettling, perfectly engineered to evoke disgust. My dad, red, faced and sputtering, finally found his voice. "What in God's name is this?" he bellowed, pointing a trembling finger at the offending art piece and then at me. But before he could launch into a tirade, a guest, Mrs. Peterson, who had seen the image through the magnifying glass, shrieked, "Mark, you animal, with Mrs. Henderson." The dam broke, the whispers turned into shouts, fingers were pointed, accusations were hurled. Clara was sobbing uncontrollably, her perfect evening shattered. Mark was stammering, trying to deny the undeniable evidence. My parents looked like they had seen a ghost, their carefully constructed world crumbling before their very eyes. They weren't just embarrassed, they were utterly exposed. Their perfect son-in-law, the pillar of the community, was a cheating hypocrite. Their daughter's perfect marriage was a lie, and it was all laid bare, thanks to my gift. I simply stood there, watching the scene unfold, a strange sense of vindication washing over me. I hadn't raised my voice, hadn't said a single cruel word. I had simply presented a truth that they had meticulously hidden beneath layers of pretense and judgmental attitudes. The party dissolved into utter chaos. Guests, shocked and disgusted, began to make their excuses and leave, whispering amongst themselves. My parents were left standing amidst the wreckage of their perfect New Year's Eve, Clara's sobs echoing in the rapidly emptying house. As I turned to leave, my dad's enraged voice boomed after me, "Where the hell are you going?" I paused at the doorway, a calm smile on my face. "Can you guess where I am, Dad? And did the family enjoy my gift?" I didn't wait for an answer. I walked out into the cold New Year's Eve air, leaving them to deal with their mess. The aftermath was exactly as I'd anticipated, and then some. My dad called me in a rage, screaming about how I had ruined everything, how I had destroyed the family. I calmly informed him that they had been planning to destroy my reputation, and I merely chose to bring some truth to light. Clara and Mark's marriage imploded, spectacularly and publicly. Mrs. Henderson's husband, it turned out, was also at the party, and he quickly initiated divorce proceedings. Petersons, the Millers, Aunt Carol, Uncle Bob, everyone had seen the gift. Everyone knew. The social standing my parents so meticulously curated was utterly shattered. The calls from relatives stopped, the invitations to Clara's perfect parties vanished. Their carefully constructed image of a flawless family was gone, replaced by whispers of scandal and hypocrisy. My parents, now dealing with the fallout of their son-in-law's affair and Clara's heartbreak, suddenly found themselves too preoccupied to judge my life choices. Funny how that works, isn't it? As for me, I felt a sense of liberation I hadn't known in years. I cut contact, focusing on my art, on building a life that was truly authentic to me, free from their toxic judgments and expectations. It was a harsh lesson for all of us, but sometimes the truth, no matter how ugly, is the greatest gift of all. So that's my story. It was brutal, it was messy, and it tore my family apart, but honestly, after what I overheard, after realizing the depth of their betrayal and the cruelty of their intentions, I truly believe I did what I had to do. Was it wrong? Maybe. But was it justified? I think so. They wanted to humiliate me, and I turned the tables. I gave them a taste of their own medicine, and it was far more bitter than they could have ever imagined. Like this video if you were on my side, if you think they got what they deserved. Subscribe for more stories like this, where real people face unbelievable situations. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'm really curious to hear your opinions. I'll see you all in the next story.